are listening and watching Rashkin Report. I'm excited to have you with us. Press like and subscribe, and tune in to other streams on this channel, especially if you speak Russian. But if you don't, then what an opportunity to welcome retired Lieutenant General Ben Hodges back to Rashkin Report. Ben, it's always a pleasure. How are you?
Yuri, thank you. I'm doing well, and I always love coming on your program because, if I may say, you ask really good questions, and I like what you get from your audience. So thanks.
Thank you very much. I feel like we have very vested audience because many of our listeners and viewers are in Ukraine and they're avid followers of your commentary on different social media platforms, and they always are very eager and thrilled to hear from you. So thank you. Let us begin. Um, do you feel that there may be, we've discussed this in the past, that there is a certain lack of strategic goal that you perceive from the Biden administration? Do you feel that situation on the ground or in Washington is causing or is likely to cause any of this to change?
So the absence of a clearly defined end state is, in my view, the biggest problem that we're having in the U.S. right now with regards to Ukraine. Even though the United States has provided a lot, and of course we saw today or yesterday that it looks like the Department of Defense somehow found another $300 million that will help provide some things. In the great scheme of things, that's not a lot. What's missing is a commitment from the administration that we want Ukraine to win, and to have that narrative strong enough so that the president can talk to the American people and say, "Let me tell you why this is so important." If he were able to do that, then there would be so much pressure on the Congress to get the aid package done that we would not be, and the Ukrainians would not be in the terrible situation they're in right now. And I think that also would probably pull the Germans along a little bit more as well. So always the clearly identifying the strategic objective, and in this case, that objective should be that Ukraine actually wins this conflict, I think is the most important task. I don't know that what we're seeing now is going to cause the administration to change that, unfortunately.
So let's say there will be this aid packet will be approved, and the plans that were in existence 6 months ago when it was first originally being requested, that's going to be the plans moving forward.
Well, I imagine that this year we're going to see General Sersky, the new commander of Ukrainian Armed Forces, and Ukrainian Armed Forces focused on, number one, stabilizing the front. I mean, there's this sort of a gloomy defeatist attitude in the West now that, oh my God, the Russians are winning, things are in terrible shape. But actually, I think that's a way too defeatist. After 10 years, Russia still only controls about 20% of Ukraine. They've lost another ship last week, more aircraft. I mean, and Ukraine continues to strike Russian oil and gas infrastructure. And I don't think that the Russians have the ability to knock out or make a big advance this year. So I think that the Ukrainian armed forces will focus on stabilizing that front this year in order to build up logistics, more ammunition, more capabilities, hopefully fix their manpower situation so that they can build more units to enable rotation and allow the West to deliver more capabilities, not just the U.S. But I think they'll also continue to put pressure on Crimea and on Russia's oil and gas infrastructure.
So you do not see a catastrophic situation for Ukraine this year?
No, absolutely not. I think uh, a lot, the failure of the United States to deliver what it should have already delivered is making it much more difficult. I don't want to gloss over the challenges facing Ukrainian armed forces, but what I'm saying is that I don't think the Russians have the ability. I mean, think about Avdiivka when it fell. I think that was like 4 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago. I was in Munich at the Munich Security Conference, and people were walking around like, "Oh my God!" Like this was Stalingrad or something. And actually, if you look on the map and see where Avdiivka is located, I mean, this is about as far east in Ukraine as you can get. And the Russians were not able to exploit what they had done in any meaningful way. So I just don't see them having the ability to launch a major offensive that could regain or gain a lot of territory. That's what I mean when I say that I think Ukrainian armed forces this year are going to be focused on stabilizing that front. Of course, there will be minor tactical gains back and forth along the line, but unless I'm really wrong, I just don't see a major change on the ground this year. But it will be more difficult for Ukrainians than it should be because of the lack of ammunition that we should have provided. Finally, Europe is waking up to this. I mean, most European countries now are seriously looking for ammunition and other things that they can provide to Ukraine.
Let's take a look a little closer at that $300 million, because the other question is, doesn't President Biden have over $4 billion that he could use? What is this $300 million? What is the meaning of this? How do you interpret it?
Well, this is what I believe is happening, and I hope to learn a little bit more later on today, is that the 300 million will help transport some things that were already identified, and provide some. The thing that got my attention, of course, was ATACMS. Although these are not the 300-kilometer range unitary round ATACMS, but the shorter range cluster munition ATACMS. There are no bad ATACMS. I just want to be clear about that. But these are not the 300-kilometer that I think would be the most significant help. Nonetheless, I think it'll be that kind of package that will provide some ammunition. That, again, I don't know all the details of this package. What I did hear was that Mr. Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, said that they are not prepared to use any more drawdown authority. So this $4 billion that you just referenced, that's $4 billion that the president could use to take weapons, ammunition, supplies, whatever, that are in U.S. Army or Marine Corps stocks and send those. And what Mr. Sullivan said, that they're not prepared to take any more out of that at this time. And that's what I mean, Yuri, about the damage of not having the objective. Well, we want Ukraine to win, because if that was the objective, it'd be a strategic priority, and then you'd have policies that would enable that, and we wouldn't be having questions about, oh, I don't know, we can't send the 300-kilometer ATACMS or those kind of things.
What is the logic that you see behind not using $4 billion to help Ukraine, but instead holding off for other purposes, possibly even for Ukraine, but not now?
Well, of course, I don't have visibility on the level. That would not be public information. How much is remaining of the different type things? So, this is not happening in a vacuum. The Department of Defense is always going to be conservative when it comes to giving up capabilities. I think that's part of what's going on, and it's while it's no consolation to Ukraine, but for everybody that's thinking about this, understanding that the department has a global responsibility and they're balancing risks every single day. What we can't see publicly is how much risk is there. And again, I know I sound like a broken record, but if you make it the priority to help Ukraine win, then that changes the risk calculations. But if Ukraine is seen as just another hotspot and we don't want them to lose, then you don't get the same sort of support and support from the U.S.
So therefore, it's meaning the